I saw a dead man mouth my name in a crowded synagogue, and the worst part was that I was the only one who noticed. My name is Daniel Klein. I am 33, I live in Brooklyn, I work a boring finance job I hate, and until last Yom Kippur, my relationship with religion was mostly guilt and bagels, ghosts, curses, Dybbuks. That was all background noise from my grandparents' stories, the kind of thing you smile at and blame on old country trauma. Then I saw him in the back row, and every story I had ever rolled my eyes at walked up and sat down behind me. The synagogue I go to is on Ocean Parkway, a worn-out conservative shul with cracked white paint and carpets that always smell like candle wax and dust. On Yom Kippur, the place feels different, heavier. People pack in with empty stomachs and full regrets, and you can almost feel the weight of everything unsaid hanging under the ceiling. The lights are too bright, the air too warm, and the hum of the cantor's voice mixes with the rustle of prayer books and quiet coughs until it all becomes one thick sound. I was standing in the middle section next to my Aunt Miriam, tallit draped over my shoulders, pretending to follow the Hebrew text while my stomach complained louder than my conscience. My mind kept drifting to work deadlines and emails waiting for me after the holiday, and every time I caught myself spacing out, I felt that old Jewish guilt gnaw a little deeper. This was supposed to be the one day I took my soul seriously, and I could not even stay focused for 10 minutes. Somewhere during the afternoon service, right in the middle of a long prayer that repeats the same sins, line after line, I felt it. A cold, sharp prickle started at the back of my neck and ran down my spine like someone had dragged an ice cube over my skin. The shul was packed and stuffy, so cold should have been impossible, but there it was, creeping into my bones. I tried to ignore it. I shifted my weight. I adjusted my tallit. I bent my head closer to the prayer book. The chill did not go away. It grew. It started to feel like there was a draft from behind me, like someone had opened a door that led straight into winter. I glanced back, just quick, expecting to see a kid fanning himself or someone standing near the exit. Instead, I saw him. He sat in the very last row, dead center, in the section people avoid because the heater never works and the seats squeak. Dark suit, a size too big in the shoulders, white shirt with a small tear at the collar, a black kippah sitting crooked on top of thinning dark hair. His skin looked washed out and flat, not pale like someone who stays inside, but faded like an old photograph left in the sun too long. His eyes were the first thing that told me something was wrong. He was watching me. Not the rabbi, not the ark, not the prayer book in his lap. Me, directly. Through rows and rows of people, past heads and shoulders and tilted prayer books, his gaze locked straight onto mine like there was a clear path only he could see. He did not blink, not once. His face was so still it looked posed. I snapped my head forward so fast my neck hurt. My heart hammered against my ribs. My fingers dug into the edge of the pew. I told myself it was nothing, that I was being dramatic, that maybe he had just been spacing out and our eyes had crossed. But the cold stayed. If anything, it sharpened. My aunt nudged me gently with her elbow, whispering that I should follow along, that this was important, that Yom Kippur was not a time to drift. I nodded, but the words on the page blurred. I could not stop thinking about those eyes. I lasted maybe 30 seconds before I looked back again. He had not moved. Same posture, same suit, same crooked kippah, same dead stillness, but this time there was no chance I could pretend he was looking anywhere else. His stare cut straight through the crowd and pinned me in place, and as our eyes met, his lips moved. No sound came out. I could see the muscles of his jaw working, see the shape of his mouth forming syllables, but the prayer chanting drowned everything, and maybe there was nothing to hear anyway. Then I recognized the shape of the word. He was mouthing my name, Daniel. The room tilted around me. My fingers went numb. I tried to swallow and my throat felt dry as paper. I turned away again, this time forcing myself to keep my eyes on the prayer book no matter what. But the text might as well have been scribbles. Every few seconds my body tried to twist back to check if he was still there. I refused until the closing prayer finally began and people around me started to shift and sing louder. By the time the service ended, I had convinced myself there was a normal explanation. Maybe he was a distant cousin. Maybe he knew my aunt. Maybe he had heard my name before and it was some weird inside thing. I told myself I would ask her after we broke the fast, that this was tiredness and fasting and my imagination making a mountain out of nothing. We shuffled out with the crowd, people murmuring Gima Chatimatova and talking about bagels and orange juice waiting at home. My aunt kissed my cheek and told me to come by tomorrow to help her with some papers she had found in my grandmother's closet. I nodded automatically, brain still buzzing. Outside, the air was cool and damp, the sky a flat grey with the last light fading. Ocean Parkway traffic roared past, headlights streaking white and red lines across my eyes. Family groups huddled on the sidewalk, kids whining, parents negotiating with exhausted voices. I scanned the people without meaning to, looking for the man from the back row. No sign of him. For a second, relief washed through me so strong I felt dizzy. Then my brain reminded me that I had never seen him come out. I started walking home, head down, hands in my pockets, counting steps to keep myself calm. The city noises blurred together. The smell of wet concrete, car exhaust, a bakery somewhere already prepping for the post-fast rush. After half a block, that feeling hit again. Being watched is not a thought. It is a physical reaction. My shoulder blades tightened, the back of my neck tingled, the world sharpened at the edges. I told myself not to look, I told myself to keep walking. I looked. He was there, half a block behind me, walking in the exact same direction, same slow, steady pace. Hands slipped into his jacket pockets. His head was slightly bowed, but his eyes were up, fixed on my back. Streetlights washed his face in sick pale yellow and carved his features into stark shadows. People moved around him without reacting at all. A couple chasing a toddler rushed past, their shoulders nearly brushing him. The guy on his phone swerved around a parked car and walked right in front of him. No one glanced his way, no one slowed. It was as if he did not exist. I stopped at the corner, pretending to check my phone, pretending I had a reason to stand still besides terror. My hand shook as I slid my thumb over a blank screen. He stopped too, not right next to me, not dramatically close, just far enough away that if you were not looking for him, you would miss him. He stood next to a parked car, under a flickering streetlight, head tilted slightly to the side like he was studying me. Our eyes locked again. This time he raised his chin, his lips forming a different word, help. The word hit me like a slap. It made less sense than everything else. If he was some demon, some evil thing, why would he ask me for help? If he was just some weird guy, why act like this? I broke eye contact, cut across toward my building, and took the steps up to my stoop 2 at a time. My keys slipped once before I got the door open. I hesitated with my hand on the knob and forced myself to look back one last time. He stood at the edge of the sidewalk, as close to my building as he seemed able to get. It was like there was an invisible barrier at the property line. The streetlight above him flickered on and off, making his face appear and vanish in jerky rhythm. In one slice of light, his eyes looked furious. In the next, they looked desperate. He lifted his right hand slowly, palm up, as if begging. His mouth shaped the word, help again, more urgent this time, teeth flashing briefly in the dim. Then the light went out for 2 long seconds. When it came back, he was gone. My apartment building stairwell smelled like damp concrete and old cooking. My sneakers echoed on the worn steps as I climbed to the 3rd floor, each footfall weirdly loud after the muffled roar of the street. Inside my apartment, the silence felt wrong. It was not the usual city silence, full of distant cars and muffled music and someone's TV through the wall. It felt like being sealed up in a box. I locked both deadbolts and stood in the dark living room, letting my eyes adjust. The only light came from the window facing the alley, a dull orange glow from the street, and a faint blue flicker from someone's TV. My reflection hovered in the glass, a faint ghost version of myself, tired eyes, tallit still draped unevenly. For one moment I thought I saw a second shadow behind my reflection, taller, thinner, leaning in from the hallway. I spun around. The room was empty. I laughed then. It was short and shaky and sounded like it belonged to someone else, but it came out anyway. I told myself I was exhausted, that fasting messes people up, that I was turning some random weird dude into a ghost because my ancestors had filled my head with stories. I texted my aunt that I got home safe, poured a glass of water, and tried to reset my brain. Tomorrow, I decided, I would ask her about him. Maybe he really was some long-lost cousin who liked being creepy. Maybe there was a list of socially awkward relatives she forgot to warn me about. By the time I got into bed, my body felt like sand. My bedroom is small, a narrow space with one window facing the alley. At night, the light that filters in is half street lamp, half flicker from the neighbor's TV, so the walls never get fully dark. I have slept there for years. I know every squeak of the mattress, every creak of the pipes. That night, the bed felt foreign. I lay on my side facing the wall, listening to my own breathing, counting each inhale and exhale like a kid trying to fall asleep before school. Outside, somewhere down the alley, a bottle broke. A car horn blared twice. A cat yowled ordinary city sounds. They should have been comforting. Sometime after midnight, I jolted awake with my heart pounding so hard my chest hurt. I did not remember falling asleep, but I knew what woke me. Someone had said my name right next to my ear. The room was freezing. That was the first thing that registered, the kind of cold that bites your nose and stiffens your fingers. I could see my breath as a pale white puff in the faint light, hanging in front of my face for a second before fading. I tried to move, to roll onto my back, but my body would not respond. It felt like something heavy pressed down on my chest and hips, not hands, not a body, just a weight, thick and invisible. Panic flooded my brain. Every instinct screamed danger, but the signal could not reach my limbs. The mattress behind me dipped, slowly, deliberately, right against my back. There was no mistaking the feeling. Years of sleeping in that bed taught me exactly how it reacts when someone sits on it. The springs complained in a low groan. The surface tilted just enough to pull my shoulder back. My hair brushed against cold air where warm air should have been. A smell crept into my nose, faint at first and then stronger. Damp earth. Something sour like old sweat. Underneath it all, a hint of mildew, the scent of a basement that never dries out. A whisper slid along my ear, close enough that I could feel the breath and the vibration in my skin. It was not English. It had the rhythm of Hebrew, but the sounds were harsher, older, like they did not fit comfortably in a human throat. The syllables scraped their way across my nerves. My eyes watered from the effort of not screaming. Then he said my name. Clear this time, same voice, different tone. Daniel. The tightness snapped. I rolled over and swung my arm through the space behind me, fingers clawing at empty air. The mattress bounced back. The cold retreated a fraction. The smell lingered like a memory. No one was there. I sat up, sucking in ragged breaths, my t-shirt damp with sweat despite the freezing air. My alarm clock said 3:13 a.m. It felt like a cliché, the cursed hour, the supernatural sweet spot I used to mock in YouTube horror videos. Except now, it was printed in red plastic numbers on my nightstand, while my heart tried to punch through my ribs. I did not sleep again. I turned on the small lamp, sat against the headboard, and scrolled through nonsense on my phone with shaking hands just to keep my mind tethered to something normal until grey light edged around the window frame. By morning, the world had the audacity to look ordinary. I showered, I dressed, I made coffee that tasted like burnt rubber, Every sound felt too loud, every movement slightly off. The space behind me felt wrong, as if the air there was heavier, waiting. Around 10, I called my aunt. I did not plan what to say. The words tumbled out in a mess. The man in the back row, the stare, the mouth forming my name, the walk home, the whisper in my ear, the cold, the bed dipping. By the time I finished, my voice shook in a way I could not hide. I expected her to soothe me, to tell me I was overtired, to make a joke about Ashkenazi guilt manifesting at night. Instead, she went silent. The line was not dead. I could hear faint sounds in the background, a spoon against a mug, a kettle clicking off, traffic through her window. When she finally spoke, her voice was smaller than usual. "Describe him," she said. "From the synagogue, every detail." I did. Suit, shirt, torn collar, crooked kippah, face, eyes. The way he looked right through everyone else and pinned me. The way his mouth shaped help like he had been trapped behind glass for years. She drew in a sharp breath. "Come over," she said. "Now. Bring yourself." That is it. Her apartment smelled like coffee and fried onions when I walked in. A familiar comfort that clashed hard with the knot in my stomach. The TV was on mute in the living room. On the kitchen table, she had an old photo album open, pages already flipped back, her fingers hovering over a spread of black and white pictures. She did not hug me. That alone scared me more than anything. She just motioned me closer and pointed to a photograph. The picture showed a young man standing in front of a narrow storefront with a Hebrew sign above the door. His suit was slightly too big. His white shirt was a little rumpled. His hairline was already starting to recede. The photographer had caught him mid-half smile, a crooked expression that did not reach his eyes. Even in faded grayscale, the eyes stood out. Dark, heavy, carrying something tired and mean at the same time. It was him, younger, healthier, but him. I said so. My voice cracked on the last word. My aunt nodded, shoulders collapsing a little, like this was the confirmation she had hoped would never come. "That is your grandfather's younger brother," she said. "His name was Chaim." I had heard that name only a couple of times in my life, always attached to quick subject changes or a sigh and a mutter about mistakes. It was one of those names that hung around like smoke, never fully addressed. She told me the rest in a flat, tired tone, like she was pulling splinters from skin. He had stayed behind in Eastern Europe when the rest of our family scrambled to get out before the war. He gambled. He borrowed money from the wrong men. He stole from people he should not have. There were rumors he cursed someone in a synagogue, shouting at God and storming out in the middle of a service. The details blurred between fact and family myth, but the end was clear. He died alone, broke, hated, owing money and apologies no one ever received. The old people said he left behind a stain, a curse, that his name carried a shadow, and that shadow followed our family, nipping at our heels. Miriam pushed the album toward me. Her finger still rested under his picture. "I thought those stories stayed over there," she said quietly, "buried with him, but last night during Kol Nidra I felt a cold wind at my back. I turned, and for a second I thought I saw him sitting in the last row. I told myself I was tired. That memory was playing tricks. Then you called. I stared at the photograph, at the man who had stared back at me from the back row with 40 years and an ocean between us. My head buzzed. My mouth felt dry. There is more, the logical part of my brain said. Ask what connects you to him. Out loud, I asked the question. She reminded me of the envelope she had handed me a week before Yom Kippur. Old documents from my grandmother's closet. Letters, IOUs, lists of names and amounts. Did you read them? She asked. Yeah, I said. I tried to help you figure out which ones mattered. I remembered then. Sitting at my kitchen table, papers spread out, tracing unfamiliar handwriting with my finger, seeing his name again and again, attached to debts and broken promises, watching the numbers pile up. Getting angry at this dead uncle I had never met, who had left such a mess for everyone else to clean. I remembered what I had said, alone in my apartment, annoyed and tired, and not taking any of it seriously. If your ghost is still around, come explain yourself instead of making everyone fix your trash. I had laughed when I said it. It did not feel funny now. My aunt went pale. "You called him," she said. "You spoke his name with anger close to Yom Kippur while you were reading his sins. You invited him." I wanted to argue. I wanted to scoff. Instead, I asked very quietly, "So what do we do?" She did not say therapist. She did not say doctor. She said, "We talk to a rabbi who believes this is possible." That is how I ended up in a small, dim office above a synagogue in Crown Heights, sitting across from a man who looked more like an overworked college professor than an exorcist. Shelves of Jewish texts lined the walls from floor to ceiling. The air smelled like old paper and lemon cleaner. He introduced himself as Rabbi Levi. He listened with his hands folded, eyes steady, as my aunt and I took turns telling the story. At the back row, the walk home, the whisper at my ear, the bed, the photo, the debts, the stupid thing I had said. He did not roll his eyes. He did not smile. He did not interrupt. When we finished, he sat quietly for a moment, then said a single word under his breath. "Dybbuk." His voice wrapped around it carefully, like he was handling something sharp. He explained it in plain language. A Dybbuk, he said, is a wandering soul, usually of someone who died with great sin or great unfinished business. Sometimes it is not ready to face judgment. Sometimes it clings to the world through people, names, objects, families. Most of the stories are exaggerated. Some a misdiagnosed illness, but some, a tiny fraction, are real enough that they leave a mark in more than one life. "Why me?" I asked. My voice came out raw. "He died 30 years before I was born. Why show up now? Why say my name?" "Because you called him," the rabbi said simply. "Because you read his debts. Because you are blood. Because Yom Kippur thins the wall and he saw a crack." The room felt smaller. The shadows in the corners felt darker. "Can he hurt me?" I asked. The rabbi did not answer right away. "A Dybbuk cannot force a person to become its vessel," he said finally. "It pushes, it whispers, it leans, but it needs agreement. Even if that agreement is in fear or guilt or curiosity. Part of you has to open the door." I thought about the cold settling into my bones, the way my jaw had locked when I tried to speak, the way my body refused to move when I wanted to turn. "So what do we do?" I asked again. "There is a process," he said. "Not like in movies, no Hollywood. It is prayer, names, calling the soul, forcing it to speak through you in front of witnesses, then sending it away. You must want to be free of it, even if part of you wants answers." We arranged to meet that night at my regular synagogue. He said it mattered to do this in the place where contact was made, where the line was first crossed. The hours before nightfall felt like a stretched-out rubber band about to snap. Back in my apartment, the air itself seemed to watch me. At one point, I walked from the kitchen to the bedroom and felt a cold spot halfway down the hallway. A sudden, unnatural drop in temperature that made my breath steam. It was right outside my bedroom door. A whisper, faint as the rustle of a page, brushed my ear. I did not wait around to translate. At the synagogue that evening, everything looked wrong. The big overhead lights were off. Only a few lamps near the ark glowed, leaving most of the sanctuary in deep shadow. The empty pews stretched back into darkness. My footsteps echoed as I walked down the center aisle. In a full house, the place feels cramped, empty. It felt like a cavern. My regular rabbi was there, standing near the front with Levi and my aunt. They had placed a sturdy wooden chair in the first row, facing the ark. Levi motioned for me to sit. As soon as I settled into the chair, the hairs on my arms stood up. The air around the bema felt thicker, like I was underwater. Levi stood just behind me. The other rabbi and my aunt stood a little farther back. They began to recite psalms, low and steady. The Hebrew wrapped around me like a net. At first, nothing happened. My heart pounded, but that was just fear. My palms sweated. I stared at the ark doors, watching the reflection of the room in the shiny wood. Then they reached the part where they spoke my full Hebrew name, Daniel ben Avraham Velea. They said it 3 times. Then Levi added another name, Chaim ben, the same parents. A name I had never heard in a formal prayer. The pressure behind my eyes changed. The air seemed to hum. For a moment, the reflection in the arc glass blurred. A shape darker than the surrounding shadows gathered just over my shoulder in the glossy wood. Levi's voice hardened. He commanded any soul attached to me to declare itself. I tried to say that this was too much, that nothing was going to happen, that I felt ridiculous, but my jaw locked. The words got stuck behind my teeth. My tongue felt heavy, like it belonged to someone else. My chest tightened, my fingers dug into the arms of the chair. The room tilted, then my mouth opened. The voice that came out was mine, but it was not my choice. Words poured out in a harsh language my brain almost recognized. A blend of old Yiddish and Hebrew, twisted and panicked, spilling into the air in broken phrases. Images slammed into my mind between syllables like flashes of a movie. A narrow street in some old European town, cobblestones slick with rain, men in dark coats playing cards in a smoky back room, money changing hands, angry shouting, a fist slamming a table, a Torah scroll closing with a thud while a man storms out, cursing under his breath. My grandfather's face, younger, shouting at someone whose features were all too familiar now. The smell of damp earth and mold seeped into the sanctuary, clashing with the usual scent of wood polish and wax. Levi's prayers grew louder, interwoven with the torrent forcing its way through my mouth. He commanded the soul to speak clearly, to say what it wanted. The words shifted. Some remained in that harsh, crooked language, but others broke through in clumsy English, like a man trying to remember how to form sounds after years of silence. Debt, shame, forgive, name. The images sharpened. A ledger with lines and numbers, names written in careful ink, some crossed out, some covered with smears. Near the bottom, under what looked like a stain from spilled wine or blood, our family name. Not crossed out. I understood something then that had nothing to do with logic. In his last days, lying alone in some damp room, Chaim had been terrified of more than death. He had been terrified of the mark he would leave, the debts, the curses spoken in anger, the way his name would rot in people's mouths, the way his stain would outlive his body. He had tried, in his own twisted way, to fix it. To confess, to find someone to hear him. No one came. Time passed. People left. His story froze in place. Until a nephew he had never met sat in a Brooklyn apartment 70 years later, read his name out loud over his unpaid debts and told his ghost to show up and explain himself. I had given him an opening. Blood, name, invitation, day of judgment. The words forced through my throat turned pleading. They asked for a chance to be heard, to lighten the load, to stop wandering with the same shame burning like an ember in a dead chest. Levi's voice cut through, sharp as a blade. The living are not pack animals for the dead, he said in Hebrew. You had your life, he has his. You cannot sit on his shoulders, you cannot sit on his chest, you cannot ride his soul into judgment. Let go. My body jerked. It felt like someone had hooked their fingers into my spine and was pulling backward while another force shoved me forward from the sternum. Pain radiated up my neck. My teeth clamped together until I thought they would crack. My own thoughts blurred at the edges. For a moment I could not remember where my life ended and his began. The anger, the desperation, the humiliation of knowing every room you walked into held at least one person you owed something to. The sick fear of dying with no one willing to say your name kindly. Levi pressed his hand to my head and shouted my name again. Not the way my mother said it when she was annoyed, not the way co-workers said it in emails. He said it like it mattered, like he was anchoring me to it. Daniel ben Avraham Valir, he said, you are not the vessel of another man's sin. You are not his scapegoat. You are not his exit door. You have your own life. You let him go now. Something snapped inside my chest with a sensation like pressure equalizing on an airplane. The weight behind my eyes surged forward, then ripped away. I gasped, choking on cold air, grabbing the edge of the pew in front of me as the chair tilted. The smell of damp earth vanished like someone had flicked a switch. The air in the sanctuary shifted, the humming pressure eased. Behind me, in the farthest row, a bench creaked. I turned. He was there, not a full, solid body. More like an impression, a figure cut out of darkness slightly darker than the rest. The crooked suit, the tired face, the eyes. They were not angry this time. For the first time since I saw him, he looked almost human, almost small. Our gazes met one last time. His mouth moved in a simple shape. Thank you. Then he was gone. Not in a dramatic puff, not melting away. 1 second there was a sense of someone occupying that space. The next, there was only an empty bench, bathed in weak yellow light. Levi's hand left my shoulder. The other rabbi stepped closer, eyes searching my face for something. My aunt stood rigid in the aisle, tears shining in her eyes. It is done, Levi said quietly. I wanted to ask him how he knew, how he could be sure, but the words felt unnecessary. The temperature in the room was normal. The smell was just wood polish and old carpet. The air did not press on my skin. I went home that night and slept like a stone for the first time in weeks. In the days that followed, small things changed. My apartment felt like mine again. No cold spots, no sense of someone standing just out of sight. The bed only dipped when I sat on it. I woke up in the middle of the night, sometimes out of habit, heart racing, but the air around me stayed clear and still. My aunt and I took the old documents to her kitchen table. We did something that felt both symbolic and foolish. We calculated, as best we could, what his debt might be worth today. Then we donated that amount quietly in his name to a local charity that helps people get out of gambling and loan traps. It did not erase what he had done. It did not rewrite history, but it marked it. It said, "Someone heard you, too late for your life, but not too late for your name." Life moved on in the way life always does. Emails, rent, subway delays, annoying group chats. Yom Kippur became a story I carried like a bruise under clothing, not visible but always there when I pressed the right spot. Sometimes at Friday night services, I sit in the same synagogue and let my eyes drift to the back row. Most of the time the bench is empty. Once in a while, when the light hits just right, I swear I see the outline of a man sitting there, head bowed, hands clasped, not watching me, just existing for a heartbeat before the shadows swallow him again. People ask, when they hear this story, if I'm sure it was real. They mention sleep paralysis, fasting hallucinations, stress, genetics, shared family psychosis. I could nod along and say maybe. It would be easier. It would make me sound less crazy, less haunted. But there is one last thing I almost never admit, something that keeps me careful about how I use names when I am angry. Every now and then, usually when I am at my lowest, when I am broke or ashamed or feel like a failure, I wake at 3, something in the morning, and feel the mattress dip right at the edge, near my feet. It is light now, nothing like the crushing weight from before, just enough to let me know someone sat down. The air does not freeze, the room does not smell like earth. No voice whispers in a language older than my passport. There is only the quiet feeling of being watched for a moment by someone whose story is tangled in mine, making sure the door between us stays mostly shut. I lie there staring at the ceiling and remind myself of the one thing that scares me more than ghosts: how easy it was to invite one with nothing but a name, a little anger, and the careless wish that he would show up and explain himself. So if you are listening to my voice right now in some dark room, thinking about dead relatives or old grudges or famous cursed names, remember this: when you say a name with enough heat, something might answer. And it might come looking for help or forgiveness or a way out, or it might be looking for a place to crawl into when you sleep.